Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay. Welcome back to the Shadowlands Alpha First Pass, First Impression coverage. The week of Fel continues. Time to dive into the Vengeance Demon Hunter. Which, hold on. I've seen a lot of the stuff in the feedback in the comments about Havoc. Don't worry. In almost a reversal of what just happened with Havoc, not as much has changed with Vengeance, although I would say a more maybe positive or forward movement has happened, whereas Havoc is definitely not a backtrack, but it's definitely a bit of a gutting from what the overall toolkit for Havoc is going to be. Granted, it's streamlined, it's smooth, it's been very strong for a long time, and has pain points still, and there are still some for Vengeance, but we'll go over those and more, of course, in this video. But also in this video and down below this video, you will find a link. You'll find many links. You will find all the links to all the testing. If you want the actual dungeon run, we were messing around with things and I was playing not Spirit Bomb. I know he wasn't playing Spirit Bomb. Oh my God. That's alpha. Everything is subject to change and it's in flux, and you don't have to play the top of the line Mythic Plus strategy. You don't have to do that. All right. We're just seeing what it feels like. Okay. Calm down. But thank you very much for the support. Check out the links down there if you want all of the links to the overall testing guides, the dungeon run videos, the overall wrap-up videos, and everything is put together for every single class as well. And if you'd like to support what I do here on the internet in a more physical sense, on purpose, we're wearing the Lil'FINAL shirt today during the Demon Hunter testing. I didn't wear it on purpose yesterday. I thought it'd be awkward to wear it today. But this is one of the designs, one of our little final boss designs by Fabelina. As well as, say, if you have more of a maybe guerrilla-inspired desire, we do have the Azurite Day shirt, which does come with or without text, and of course, horde colors. You can design whatever colors you want on whatever fabrics you would like that are available for you there. Sweatshirts, hoodies, tank tops, you name it. Link is down below to support what I do and support the artists that I work with, because of course that support goes back into making more designs most of the time, and that goes in my merch store. Links down below. Thank you very much for those that are supporting the show and the stream with such purchases of your own. If you get a piece of merch, though, send me a Twitter. Send me a tweet on Twitter, a picture of you wearing the shirt, or on your dog, or your cat, or whoever else. Let me see you repping that FINALBOSSTV merch. And of course, the artists that make the merch, love to see their designs in person on the peoples. But Vengeance, the hippity hoppity, slammity downy, Mario Goomba stomping Demon Hunter tank. And let's go over the baseline things real quick here. Let's cover, of course, that there are, and this is like a blanket statement as well for Havoc, there's so many rank 2s and 3s and 4 for all these abilities. There isn't anything else for Vengeance just yet. Everything has been learned by level 52, but I'm sure there might be more. So far, when classes are getting sorted, they have a 52, 54, 56, 58, because then 60 is your new Covenant ability. But right now, Vengeance has nothing. So we'll see what they get in the future for that. But some baseline changes. You use Fury now. You do not use Pain anymore. It is all Fury. The purple bar is the same for both Havoc and Vengeance. And Havoc and Vengeance, you already have this as Vengeance baseline with Immolation Aura. But your Immolation Aura by default does still generate some Fury over 6 seconds. The Havoc counterpart has to talent into a Burning Hatred to add Fury generation over that time as well. You don't have to do that. You don't generate any Fury by taking damage, though. It is all by abilities that you use offensively. So things like Demon Spikes, for example, are still free. And there is still, as a overall, there is still a bit of the, I have a lot of Fury, I don't have much to spend it on, so I just keep building to get to soul fragments, right? That's still the Shattered Soul fragment component is very much still the core of what you'll be doing. Your sort of purple little floaty combo points are still there, which hopefully we'll see some more adjustments there as we move forward. But yeah, there are things in the ranks like Disruption, or Disrupt rather, your Interrupt, which has multiple ranks giving it from a melee range ability to then giving you Fury on a successful interrupt to then adding 10-yard range to it, or Throw Glaive, getting an extra rank to bounce an additional time. There are things of this nature that are sort of in the back end of it, but yeah, sure, it's not a big deal. It's just they have to split up all these abilities for you to level with, and that's what they've chosen to do. We're down here in front of the Necrotic Wake, so we can actually pull some mobs, because it's hard to talk about tanking without actually getting hit in the face. The biggest change to Havoc overall, or Havoc right now, to Vengeance overall right now, again, you're seeing I'm not generating any Fury while taking damage, only when my Immolation Aura was up there, is of course this. I'm still in meta. Oh my gosh, I'm still in Metamorphosis. That is correct. Vengeance now has their own version of Demonic, and Fel Devastation, aka the BURP, the Fel BURP, is also baseline. So you always have Fel Devastation now, and there are some changes to that one, and we'll go over that right off the bat. So currently, in the talented version, let me pull it up on my side monitor here just to make sure I'm reading the right tooltip. It's a 20-yard range, that cone in front of you. It's a 1-minute cooldown with no cost in BFA. Now it is a 50 Fury cost, which you always have a ton of Fury, right? So this is sort of a Fury dump, if you will. And it's a 45-second cooldown, so 15 seconds more often can you use it. And to jump sideways to the new Demonic talent, which is right here next to Void Reaver and Soul Barrier, this is 8 seconds still. I do believe that is mostly because of Fel Devastation having a locked 2-second channel time. So you still essentially get 6 seconds of use after, because, or no, after you finish it. Well, you're in it when you're burping, and then you get 8 seconds in versus the 6 seconds in that Havoc gets, which when they channel their I-beam when they take Demonic. So theirs got a little nerfed. Your version, at least currently, stays at 8 seconds. And of course, all the components of being in meta, which is the maximum health bump, the armor bump, shear and fracture if talented, generate an additional lesser soul fragment and 20 additional fury. The huge fury bump while in demonic windows, if you go back and if you want to watch the dungeon run, you'll sort of see that I still have a ton of fury. It kind of feels like a null resource sometimes where you just always have it, which is strange. Discussion came up today a lot about if Demon Spike should go back to costing maybe 10 Fury potentially, just to at least have something to spend it on. But then there was also the compiling problem back in the day when it did cost something, is that when you did and you didn't have it available to keep up your active mitigation window, it felt bad. That's why it's a free active mitigation window. But at the same time, if the purple bar is always full, nothing to spend it on, and you're just waiting for combo points, your little floaty soul fragments, then it's just kind of, there's something desynced there still. It's not maybe as bad, but the demonic window does definitely feel fun. Pairs really well with soul rending, of course, the passive 5% leech and then 25% in meta might compete. Fracture just feel really good, but so does demonic burps with big leech windows. So I can pop this back up in here because I just burped on those two guys. That's a weird sentence. But Fel Devastation, of course, has a heal tick each time it would deal damage. There's no AoE damage fall off or weird square root divided by target madness for your damage here. The only one we'll get into, which I'll touch on a little momentary later, there is something that's a little bit awkward in this sense, but Fel Devastation is the big, huge change. Demon Spikes, however, this could be just a factor of the number squish. But Demon Spikes currently on live is 60 times your agility divided by 100. It's up to 75 times your agility divided by 100. That's the mathematic formula behind the scenes there. So that means it scales a little bit more with your agility. So eye level could be a little more of a factor in Demon Spikes. Granted, it is just armor and the flat parry chance, which is still going to be really strong. Of course, you get crit equals parry as well on the back end, and your mastery has not changed. It is still increasing the armor bonus of the whole back end mathematical part of, I mean, look at my armor right now, 290. Bam. It goes up by quite a bit during Demon Spikes. That, of course, is compounded by your Fel Blood Mastery. And, of course, still have the attack power bonus there, too, which that's one of the weird rank ones, that you get a rank 2 down the line where you get the attack power bonus. It's not baked in from the beginning. Getting everyone's mastery at really early levels actually feels really cool in the new leveling back end. Everyone gets it at 10 now instead of like 48 or something along the lines. Demon Hunters are starting at level 8 in Shadowlands, whereas allied races start at 10. They skip the Exile's Reach stuff, and of course you start on the Demon Hunter starting planet for the 2-ish levels that you're there before you get blooped out back in time. And then you pick whatever expansion you want to go in, which is still chromey, timey-wiminess, but you know, it's okay. Other big baseline changes here is really just talking about talents now. But to pull back before I get into that, the AoE stuff. Soul Cleave, which is still mostly hot garbage. It does no damage. It now has a 5 target cap. It's only 5 enemies in front of you. And it very much is in front of you. In the dungeon, you'll see I actually pull mobs and like angle myself different directions now. There's something new with mobs in Shadowlands. This is mostly a tank, you know, orientated thing, of course. And I believe they still do this in BFA, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a slight, let's pull this extra skeleton over here. I don't know if he'll actually follow us all the way over here, but there is a slight wrapping. I don't want the Wraith. They're annoying. It's a slight wrapping of mobs if you pull enough that they will sort of fan out around you. Let's see if they keep doing it. Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. But we were getting times when I was trying to pull a bunch of mobs, and I was actually getting... See, here's the 5 target cap, though. The reason why the 5 target cap is also weird is things like Void Reaver won't ever hit every mob then, which I don't understand. A lot of things... See, there we go. They keep trying to wrap around, see? They, like, totally try to surround you, which means that you have to keep backing up, because obviously if mobs get behind you, then that's bad. It should be fine here, though. Big Soul Cleaves. Like, the heal from Soul Cleave is fine. It's just that the damage it does is pitiful. And Vengeance does damage, but only if you spec Spirit Bomb and Fracture most of the time. Now, Fracture damage to shear damage is almost likely the same, because the time it's on cooldown, you could just be continuously shearing. That's not a big deal. It's Spirit Bomb damage. So there's feedback points that have come up again before about maybe what if, you know, the Spirit Bomb thing is it pulls in every available soul fragment to deal that extra burst of fire damage. But what if when Soul Cleave pulled in the up to 2, it still made them blow up for fire damage? So you have Soul Cleave, which is sort of the baseline version, and if it wants to target cap at that explosion at 5 targets, then also sure. Well, that'll at least give you a sort of weak version of Spirit Bomb, and then you could talent into Spirit Bomb if you want to. But the overall thought of builds that are only Spirit Bomb, I know people have the same kind of like, oh, I don't want to play Spirit Bomb again for 2 more years, just remove from the game or make it baseline, blah, you know. They can't make everything baseline. They can't remove everything from the game. There are certain hooks that are really good and that work. And I think Spirit Bomb just needs to be sort of the amped up version of what Soul Cleave is. And Soul Cleave isn't enough of a baseline ground floor for Spirit Bomb to feel like an upgrade that you can take situationally. Primarily, of course, the huge damage in AoE situations, because it doesn't have a AoE drawback. It probably has the square root math behind it most of the time. We didn't really dive into too much Spirit Bomb testing today because people were just like, it's Spirit Bomb. It'll be probably really good. Look at other things, please, Bay. And I was like, all right. So we did. But I imagine everything else in the game now has the new diminishing returns where AoE damage amount is divided by the square root of the number of targets that are hit. Meaning that diminishing returns now on some abilities, like Breath of Sundergosa, if you are watching all the coverage, you saw we talked about that in Frost DK video. Breath is actually stronger now on less targets compared to its BFA counterpart. And then it gets very weak after you get to mass AoE, like 10 to 12 plus mobs. But that means that mass AoE hits, and I go over a little bit in Havoc's video, is we talk about Fel Barrage a little bit too, about how it has a target cap. But Fel Barrage literally scales with haste, fires off more bolts, and the more haste you have and you put it in like a demonic window, the more Fel Barrage happens, and it targets things super randomly. So it having a target cap didn't make sense. Now Spirit Bomb will hit just everything in 8 yards of you. The frailty is the big part there, because you can stack it with you stack Spirit Bomb. Obviously it pairs well with Fracture, but you could have 10% frailty, which is essentially leech against those targets, and soul rending and demonic windows, so you can have 25% leech and 10% frailty on big AoE trash packs, and have a ton of additional trickle healing for a burst when you need it, like you controlling your destiny. That's why Spirit Bomb makes sense in AoE, but on single target it's like, the frailty isn't there, it's the damage, which again is why Soul Cleave is kind of the poo-poo. Additional crazy things here is we're going over demonic, of course. Bulk extraction. This is a weird one. I'm going to go show you real quick what this does. We already saw what demonic is, of course, doing. You know what Soul Barrier does. What Soul Barrier now is interesting. You can pair Soul Barrier with bulk extraction, this new talent. It is a 90-second cooldown, so essentially it would be every third Soul Barrier cast, where you demolish the spirits of those around you. It's very metal. Dealing fire damage to nearby enemies, all nearby enemies, but up to extracting 5 lesser soul fragments. If you hit 1 target, it's 1. If you hit 3, it's 3, and then more than 5, it will be 5, and it will immediately draw them in and consume them. If you're in a soul barrier window, it will basically, you can soul barrier with 5 and then bulk extraction for 5 more, and get really, really big, beefy soul barrier shields, which that's going to be huge for magic damage if you can draw in and make more souls from bulk extraction. If it's not, then it's only going to be 1 or 2 at a time. So if I pull this Wraith over here, and this is a single target mob, and if I bulk extraction here, I only ate 1 consumed soul. So it's definitely very awkwardly weak in this sense on a single target. It is a huge AoE style ability, which is fine if that's what it is. But the AoE component with bulk extraction seems really strong. You can make really big soul barriers. And the one thing that the soul barrier tooltip doesn't tell you is that while the soul barrier is active, you can continuously pull in more souls to continuously bolster the shield. That effect is, of course, still very much there. People were talking about in chat today how Soul Barrier is a weaker Mystic Brew, which is the new ability, the new Guard Brew on Brewmaster Monks. But remember, Soul Barrier shields you and pulls in up to 5 soul fragments, which also heal you. Because every time you pull in a soul fragment, you trigger the Shattered Souls effect, which is the 8% of damage taken in the last 5 seconds with a minimum of 1% of your maximum health. So in a way, it's a shield and a direct heal. That is how Soul Barrier works. So it is a Demon Hunter-y version of that Guard mechanic, even if Guard also requires you to sort of build up purified chi through purifying brews. But I'll pull up these mobs again over here, and you'll see that there is a very real potential to have, let's get 5 soul fragments around us, just you know, because. But you can put up a big barrier and then immediately rip off more souls with bulk extraction, whichever, and get even more, and then of course go into a big old burp and keep yourself really nice and healthy. So there is that there. Of course, if you watch the Blood Death Knight video, then you'll know that Blood DK has so many buttons, and you see a bunch of buttons on my bars right now that are grayed out because I don't have them talented, so you can't even use them. Rip. Wham. You see, I'm hitting Soul Cleave and like no damage happens, and when my dot's down and when my immolation aura is down, it's really, really, really weak damage. So Soul Cleave still needs something if you don't choose to talent into it, which I played the whole dungeon today, did fine. It was only a normal level up dungeon, of course, though, but it was okay. I was just trying to, going against the grain or the meta. I just wanted to see how it feels to play without the obviously superpowered ability you've used for 2 expansions in a row. There's also Ruinous Bulwark down here, which you saw earlier in action, but this is just 15% more healing on Fel Devastation, and 50% of its overhealing is converted into Absorb Shield for 10 seconds. I will say that it feels incredibly weak on single targety kind of stuff because you don't usually overheal, but the healing of Fel Devastation, also to bring that back up, is just attack power based. So of course it will scale with your mastery. The more attack power you get, the more mastery you have, the stronger the heal is. Each individual tick of the heal, from what I've seen, it ticks 12 times. There is some haste interaction there, so maybe it ticks only about 11-ish or so, 10 to 11, and then there's like a fall off tick there. That's the base about it heals, but each individual heal tick can, of course, crit to heal you for double. And this just increases the amount that the healing does. The one thing is that it's only 50% of overhealing goes to a shield, which is very weak. Each individual tick, we'll spec back into it and grab some mobs here. Each individual heal is actually very, very small. Granted, I'm level 50 and numbers are numbers, and it's just mostly for ratios. So don't get too locked into the numbers here, but just to show how much the healing goes off for. Each heal right here is like, so that's a 600 crit, and then 300, and then 300, and then a 600. Maybe a crit down here again too. No, there's a crit healer right there. So there's overhealing, but it almost makes you want to use it when you are full health, which could be the interplay that they're going for. They, of course, in the sense being Blizzard, and that's fine. Let's put up a big soul barrier here real quick. Bloop. Good stuff. Oh boy, a 500 crit soul cleave. Oh my goodness. I think the fun talents right now, sort of winding down with the overall talents, that's everything that's changed, is some things that are removed. So Abyssal Strike, and you're not seeing Infernal Crash, or Flame Crash rather. Razor Spikes, gone. Even though I say Razor Spike should be rolled in to feed the demon, but it's not right now. So we'll get to feedback, of course, later. Flame Crash is gone. It's now rolled into Abyssal Strike. Abyssal Strike now does not have the 10 extra yards. So your Infernal Strike will only ever go so far now. Only 30 yards, which is still pretty far. I mean, that's still pretty far. You can, of course, I have the macro on my 1 to jump at your location for extra damage. But now it has the cooldown reduction and the Sigil of Flame in Abyssal Strike, which now pairs against Agonizing Flame, which is the movement speed during Immolation Aura and the increased damage of Immolation Aura. And then Fellblade is up here, which is 40 Fury on demand, which is still kind of weird because what I said earlier about Fury maybe not mattering too much, which we'll have to wait and see if Fury becomes more of a thing that matters a little bit more. Maybe something has to cost Fury extra. Don't know. Feast of Souls, still, what is this? Fallout is still going to be good. That's the Immolation or Initial Burst has a chance to shatter lesser soul fragments from enemies. Good stuff. Burning Alive is still trash. I think it should be rolled in with Charred Flesh, which is the fiery brand. Fire damage that your abilities deal to the target is increased by 20%. But there's none of that Charred Warblades interaction anymore where you heal for fire damage. So my suggestion point is that Charred Flesh and Burning Alive should be the same talent. And maybe even it doesn't do like the whole spread when it ticks thing. It's just when you cast your fiery brand, it just hits everything around that fiery branded target and increases the fire damage you deal to the target. So it gives you some more of that burst damage. And of course you can pair that up with hitting them with the big old burp, because this is all fire damage as well. So Infernal Armor is your Azurite trait that you have rolled in now. It is increasing your armor by 20%, not a flat amount, but 20. And it causes thorns damage, essentially, to melee attackers. So I went with this very Immolation Aura-based build in the dungeon. So more damage on Immolation Aura, movement speed, lesser soul fragments shattering, increased armor, and that armor does stack with your demon spikes, of course. Let me pull up my... So we have demon spikes, and then we put up Immolation Aura. Big armor. Now, obviously, it's only a short window of time, but that almost, not double dipped, but you know what I mean? It increases the value of your mastery that extra bit more and increases the value of agility on your character. So agility-based trinkets instead of stamina-based trinkets for vengeance will probably still be a big deal because that directly mitigates into your, or helps to mitigate into your armor stat. But you get why Charred Flesh is so lame, and Infernal Armor looks like a good competition to Spirit Bomb, but Spirit Bomb is damage. Infernal Armor is kind of damage, but really only works in AoE because of the Thorns effect. That could use some work here. And again, Feed the Demons, I think, should at least just have something to it. Or, I don't know. Concentrated Sigils is a tough one. I brought this up on stream today saying that it's actually really powerful. I like Concentrated Sigils. I did all the Mage Towers on... I played Demon Hunter since Legion and BFA, and I did all the Mage Towers. I mean, this is my character. I have the trash can lids on my Demon Hunter. Some of the things transferred over from the live game, but not everything. So, I don't know. But Concentrated Sigils is... the 2 extra seconds of, say, silence. Fear, not so much, because already 20 freaking seconds. The extra couple of seconds for Sigil of Flame dealing more damage is more damage. But Concentrated Sigils always targeting at yourself is still a really awkward, stupid part of this talent, because you can obviously target them here, or you can make just a macro that does it already. Because that's what I was doing with Infernal Strike. You do @player. You can also put @cursor here to drop things at your cursor when you cast them. But you still make these, so you can just cast whatever sigils you want at your character in the first place. So all you're gaining from this is always doing that, which is frustratingly awkward. So a thought for Concentrated Sigils is just to make it so that all sigils are just stronger. Maybe the initial damage of your Sigil of Flame is way more bursty, and then the dot lasts 2 or 4 seconds longer, right? Your silence lasts 2 seconds longer. Your fear may not easily break on damage, or for the first maybe 2 seconds, it can't break on damage because you can just fear things as an interrupt, but then it immediately breaks. Something that actually makes it oomphy, because Quickening Sigils is definitely oomphy, right? The cooldown reduction and all activated sigils activate snappier. It's good. Sigil of Chains probably should be baseline. We keep bringing that up all the damn time. If we talk about it being baseline, what if it was like a 2-minute cooldown? Because Demon Hunter versus Death Knight has that grip component, but then so do Druids with Typhoon, kind of. So they can get theirs just from speccing into their affinity. Why do you still have the talent into this? This should be all about changing how sigils work. An option we had here, actually, I left it up. There's the Rune Master's Pauldrons, which meta resets all your sigils and grants you demon spikes. Or there was the Defiler's Lost Vambraces, which Soul Cleave, which gives you something to care about Soul Cleave, reduces the cooldown of random sigils, which you could game in a way that is a player skill-based thing, where if you only use, say, Sigil of Flame, and then you Soul Cleave, it only cools down Sigil of Flame. But if you have all your sigils on cooldown, it gives cooldown on all different ones individually. So there's something there. That's what the biggest thing to take away from the Vengeance stuff is that there is something. Gluttony is gone, replaced by Demonic. It's better. Last Resort's still there for progression. Void Reaver, again, is weird because of the target cap, but on single target, it's strong because it's a multiplicative damage reduction on, like, patchwork bosses. It's almost there, right? It needs something else. We'll definitely get to the feedback section of my overall testing and hopefully work out a bunch of feedback to send over to Blizzard, because there's enough there, but there's still something else, right? Like, the cake is done, but it needs frosting. Thank you very much for listening. Of course, if you want to support what I do here more directly, click the link down below. Check out the Little Final Bosses line of apparel that Fabelina has made if you would like. Support what I do here in a more physical sense. And check out the channel guide if you'd like to get all of the dungeon videos, or go back and see all the different VODs and see how long and arduous and painful I enjoy it, but it is definitely, it's a acquired taste to see how I test all of these specs. Everything is still highlighted over on Twitch, so it's not going anywhere, but thank you very much. The week of Fel continues. Next up is Warlock. I don't know which one. I forgot. We're just doing Warlock. They stole everything from you.